Rich, what's the first story for us?
All right, folks, we have decided to devote this entire segment to arguably the most important story of the 2016 election.
Sad.
I think people are going to see this as, like, you know, I always think back to like my high school history textbooks and the way that they really like simplified and dumbed things down. And they're like, in this election, this is the most important thing that you need to know. And I think the two things you need to know from 2016 are going to be the fact that Donald Trump was a nominee and this, right?
I was sweating. Sorry, folks.
I was sweating because Donald Trump is so offensive.
Yeah, it's true. Oh,
so, about 10 years ago, Donald Trump was filming an interview with a guy named Billy Bush.
I want to talk about Billy Bush in a minute, but continue.
I think at the time, Billy Bush was, what is he, like Inside Edition or Access
was
Hollywood.
Access Hollywood.
Now he is technically still an employee of the Today Show, but is on the way out the door.
I want to say he's left.
They suspended him and they're negotiating the terms of his release. So, for all intents and purposes, he's no longer an employee of the Today Show.
So let me say this before we get into it. And folks who've seen the video, we'll talk about it in a minute. But we'll talk about the video before I talk about Billy Bush.
Sure. So in this video, Donald Trump and Billy Bush are sitting on Donald Trump's tour bus. They are having a lewd conversation where, among many other things, Donald Trump describes how, because he's famous, it's okay for him to go up to women and kiss them and grab them in their private regions. And he's able to do all of this because he's famous. So, in so many words, Donald Trump is basically
describing sexual assault. And
Billy Bush is also incredibly creepy and definitely isn't weirded out by it.
So I'm going to say this about Billy Bush. And I rarely ever... don't get me wrong, I think Donald Trump is a creep. In my opinion, and maybe the women of the world are going to say, Richard, you're so wrong, it's awful. But I don't think that Billy Bush is a creep here.
Oh, wow. I tend to disagree completely.
Like, I mean,
here's the reason why he is a creep. Because after that conversation, when they step off the tour bus and they see that woman, he creepily makes her hug both Donald Trump and him. Which is like the
wait a minute,
natural connection between that conversation.
Wait a minute. Maybe it's just me. And crucify me to the cross. I am as progressive as they come, and when it comes to women's issues...
Fowler is pro-Billy Bush.
No, I'm not pro-Billy Bush. I just think that Billy Bush is a casualty. He's a victim of circumstance here. He's sitting... At this point in time, he was new. This is his new... Just came out, like, sort of fresh off. He just got a job in entertainment, really working on building his profile. He lands a major interview with somebody who, at the time... This is before Donald Trump ran for president. Was a huge name, right? We just had Trump ties... Trump, Trump Hotel, he's a big name. You're sitting there in a bus listening to this guy rant on about how he grabs women and how he kisses them and blase, blase. And what do? Do you say to Donald Trump, Donald, you are wrong and you're a sexist and possibly lose your job? Especially because we all understand the culture that we live in, that when you speak up on these issues, which shouldn't be the case, a lot of times the rich white guy gets you fired. Right?
So let me play devil's advocate for a moment with Billy Bush. That would have been all well and good if he didn't have that weird hugging, creepy interaction with the woman.
He was doing his job.
The second thing, which also I think refutes what you're saying, is the fact that Billy Bush has a long-standing friendship with Donald Trump.
How do you know that?
Oh, it's confirmed. There are videos of them
before 2005,
post 2005 until 2016.
Okay, well that is
current answering machine message says, "Hi, this is Billy. I'm making America great again."
Okay, so that makes it problematic. That is what I did not know. I didn't know that.
It's a piece of information that's relevant.
I didn't know that,
right?
but I mean, if
they have a bromance going on.
If you just look at Billy Bush on face, I don't think there was any wrongdoing done by Billy Bush in that particular tape. After listening to the transcript a couple times,
I don't necessarily think he
didn't say anything. I don't think he did anything that would quote unquote deem him to be a sexual assaulter or anything like that. So, I think he was a victim to circumstance. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, if he wants to make America great again, after the fact, understandable. And I understand why someone would come down on him. But on the video on face, in my opinion, is not it doesn't rise to the level. And maybe the women out there are going to say, Richard, you're such a sexist. That's totally not true, and I reject that because I'm not a sexist. But I just don't see, and unless somebody could point out to me in that video where Billy Bush is something wrong, I mean, I think he might have been silenced. Some people say that silence admits, what's the word I'm looking for? Silence means you condone the action. There's a word that, complicit. You're complicit in the action.
I mean, here's the thing with Billy. In that scenario, don't get me wrong. Like, I think there are a lot of times where, like, especially if you're in some, like, this isn't exactly the same, but if you're in some kind of like employer-employee relationship or something like that, where like there's someone who's powerful and your, you know, money is somehow, you know, being held by them, they could say whatever they want, and a lot of times people are just going to sit there and think like, I can't believe I'm listening to this.
You're just as much the victim.
Walk out the room. But in this case, we do know that Billy is like pro-Trump heavily, and you know, I don't know if no one's come out and said like, oh, Billy Bush has sexually assaulted me, but you know, it doesn't look good for him.
No, I mean, he'll lose his job. But yeah, I don't want to make this like about Billy Bush, but in the
apparently we're talking about Billy Bush
in the video. In my opinion, you can have yours, and that's fine. I feel as though that, you know,
doesn't really matter. Anyway, Billy Bush isn't running for president.
No.
Donald Trump is.
He's not.
And since this video came out and he vehemently denied it during the debate, which we'll go on to talk about later in the show, I will note that as of right now, I believe the number is up to 7 or 8 additional women have come out either through the New York Times or People magazine and said that Donald Trump either groped them or sexually assaulted them in some way. Now, the majority of these have happened in the last 10 years, but there is also one that happened about 30 years ago. As far as we know, and I would of course assume this based on what we've heard out of Donald Trump's mouth, that these are truthful, they've been verified by the New York Times, and it basically just explains exactly what we heard out of Donald's mouth. Not only did he say it, not only was it locker room talk, but he has the actions to back it up.
It was not. What Donald Trump said on that bus was not locker room talk. I mean,
what was it? It was admitting to a crime.
It was sexual. Yeah, it really was. I mean, locker room. Okay, in my opinion, locker room talk would be like, "Oh my God, she's beautiful. Oh my God, look at her body. Her body looks amazing," or you know, in more colorful language than that.
Yeah,
right?
Not like I'd like to sexually assault her.
Right. Not like, or even I think locker room talk could even go as far as saying, oh man, what I would do if I got a chance, you know, what I would do if she gave me a shot to lay in the hay with her, or roll in the hay with her.
I mean,
that's locker room talk, in my opinion. In my opinion, when you say, this is what I do to women, I go by, I showed her where the furniture was, quote unquote, or I grabbed her by the genitals.
Yeah.
And when I see beautiful women, I just can't stop myself. I just run up there and I just start kissing them. I don't even care. That is border, like that's where the line changes. Wishing and fantasizing is locker room talk. Talking about things that you have engaged in,
it's a little bit different,
is not locker room talk. So this argument of it being locker room talk is ridiculous.
Well, I think it was good messaging on their part. I mean, like, listen, at this point, you're basically trying to save the entire house, and it's damage control. But for a lot of Donald Trump supporters, you know, who may or may not be as crazy as Donald.
And what makes this story even crazier is that about 20 some odd years ago, and people see me tweet about this, Donald Trump falsely accused 5 black men who were walking around or having fun in Central Park with raping and killing a woman. Right? They were known as the Central Park 5. He
still stands by that.
He took out a New York Times ad saying to bring back the death penalty and put these guys to death. These 5 black gentlemen who were later found to be innocent of the crime. There was clear police misconduct. I would argue there was police brutality, police wrongdoing, to the point where the city of New York paid these gentlemen millions of dollars and released them from jail. So he accused them of sexual assault. But they were innocent. He is a true sexual assault. Not only did he assault his wife, Ivania, in their divorce testimony, in the deposition, she talks about being raped by him. Then he goes further to talk about all these various number of women involved in the various beauty pageants that he also assaulted.
Oh yeah, he also brags about how he gets to go and walk in on the women while they're changing and no one says anything because he owns the pageant.
That's creepy. That is sexual assault. That is sexual pedophilia at its finest. And he crucified these 5 black gentlemen when he is the real sexual assaulter. And the American people, if you vote for Donald Trump, you are voting for sexual assault.